Mic check. Peas and carrots, peas and carrots. Paprika. Hi, I'm Ashley Daigle, and this is Advice from the Cheerbrarian. Never heard that word before? Well, that's because I smushed two words together because I felt like it. This week we're going to do what we always do. Mix a dollop of advice to improve your life, born from a few of my successes and a boatload of my mistakes, with the book recommendation of the week, unearthed by my voracious love of reading, from self-help to historical fiction and everything in between. As always, follow wherever you pod and join the Cheerbrary on Instagram or Facebook by following me at the @Cheerbrarian handle. Anywho, let's do this. In today's unsolicited advice, we are talking about your brain. This is part 1 of a series I'm going to do about the brain. Next week, we will have part 2. And later on, we will maybe have more parts as I decide to talk about it more, because I find understanding how we think and how we interact with our brains to be very interesting. So today we are talking about, and your brain's not going to like it, but we are talking about how your brain is a dirty, dirty liar. We are talking about negative self-talk, your inner critic. That voice in your head that is telling you that you are dumb and you are bad at things and no one likes you. This is the voice that if it were external, so if you had a friend who talked to you this way, you would hopefully never tolerate that mess and you would kick that toxic shenanigans to the curb. But you can't do that because it's in your head. So, your brain is a lying liar who lies all the time. It's just a fact of life. But you do not have to take it. You can fight back, and I'm here to help you with that because I will say it is not easy. It is difficult to sit there with yourself day in and day out, hearing the worst things about yourself that are coming from the inside. The call is coming from inside the house. So, what are we going to do about it? The first thing we are going to learn to do is to distance ourselves from this criticism. The way that you're going to do this, we already talked about how if this was a friend, you wouldn't take it. So we are going to frame this criticism, this negative self-talk as as another person. And you're going to do that by naming it and calling them out. So I will share this with you. My inner critic's name is Linda Lame Sauce. I landed on this because I started with lame sauce, which to me just like really works. And then I wanted an L name because alliteration is really cool. And I didn't really know that many Lindas, and it vibed for me. So Linda Lame Sauce is what I call my inner critic. So the way this works, what I try to do is when I have a negative thought, instead of just, falling down the rabbit hole of it, I'll say, ooh, Linda, sounds like Linda's on the mic. We're actually not interested in what you have to say, Linda Lame Sauce. And I am pushing it out of my brain. Now, maybe Linda doesn't work for you, so we can think of some other L names. First one that comes to mind is Larry, but that's actually one of my grandfather's names. So I'm going to ask you a personal favor. Don't do Larry. What else do we have? We can do no, I know a Lucy that I like. Leroy. Lemur, that's an animal. That doesn't work. Leviathan. That doesn't sound right. Okay, I checked, and Leviathan is a sea serpent slain by God. So maybe Leviathan works. I don't think Leviathan lame sauce kind of rolls off the tongue. But the point is, figure out a name, whether it's lame sauce or whatever you want to do, that you can use for this negative self-talk to remind yourself that it isn't you and you don't have to listen to it. The other practice we're going to work on is not letting this negative criticism run free. We're going to give it a time and a place. So what I want you to do is set an actual bracketed time where you will deal with this. You will maybe take it in, and some that you don't. So maybe it's 2 to 4 p.m. is when you are going to take in negative self-talk. So if your brain comes up with some mess and it's 1 p.m., you say, "Oh, brain, yeah, we're actually not open until 2. Like it's not me. I'm the assistant manager, but you can see on the window it says 2 p.m. So we're not actually gonna take that information now. You're gonna have to come back later and bring it back around." Sorry about that. Except you're not actually sorry about it at all. But that is a method you can use. You might even be able to identify a time of day when your brain is the lyingest liar and just not even entertain anything that's ever happening. So for me, I know that that is nighttime. So, you know that thing with the Snickers commercials where, you're not yourself when you're hungry and like, it really, brought to the nation's forefront the hangry issue. Well, I have decided I have a tanger problem. I get tangry. When it is late at night, I am belligerent and not a joy to deal with, and I am not at my best. So certainly that means that my thinking is not going to be great. So for example, at 9 p.m., just an example, I'm just making this up. When my brain is telling me that, it's cringe to have this podcast and everyone in the world is tired of seeing my posts on social media about it, I'm like, oh, 9 o'clock brain? No, 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 no. We are not interested in anything you ever have to say because it is after 8 p.m. And really, I should probably do 7:30. Let's be honest. I get sleepy early. So, think of this timing as maybe intermittent fasting, but for criticism. So maybe for you, it's the morning. Maybe the morning is when you're not quite awake and you're not doing the best thinking. And so if you're having this random volley, this onslaught of thoughts early in the day, you just punch out of that. So you can decide when you're going to let these thoughts engage with the rest of your consciousness. The whole point of these two exercises is that you can choose when and how, and even if you engage with negative thoughts rattling around in your brain, they do not have to control you. And I'm not here just to only call the brain a lying liar. It is also trying to protect you and help you. But we will talk about that more next week in part two, which is aptly titled, wait for it, Your Brain is Trying to Help You. Yes. But today we're digging more into the lying liar parts. And that's going to be just about the end of our advice portion. It's going to be a little shorter because the real meat and potatoes of this episode is going to be the book that I have read and all the juicy things from it. Sidebar. I have been really thinking about what is a more dietarily inclusive phrase than meat and potatoes? Because, like, vegetables are cool. I like eating vegan. And so meat and potatoes doesn't sound right. So I tried to look it up. The internet gave me options like rice and beans or beans and greens. I didn't love either of those. So my contribution is stack of pancakes because that's a full meal and it's something you're excited about. And it's obviously the main course, it's the crux of the situation, which is what we're getting at. So I'm going to use stack of pancakes, but I'm going to workshop it here with you. So let me know on social media if you like it or if you hate it or if you have another idea. And now we are on to the bookie goodness. Today's unrequired reading is a little bitty bit of nonfiction. It is called My Stroke of Insight, a brain scientist's personal journey by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. It is a short and sweet book, under 200 pages, and the audiobook is just about 6 hours, and it is read by Taylor. She also has a TED Talk about this topic, and I will link to that fiction. So when I recommend fiction, I'm going to be very brief on the details of the book because I personally have an absurdly large distaste for spoilers. I like to go into reading a fiction book as in the dark as possible about what is going to happen. So much so, when I was growing up and my mom would take me to the public library, I would pick up a book I thought I might like, maybe by an author I'd read, and hold it out to her and make her read the back of it and try to guess if I would like it because I didn't even want to read the back of the book. So with fiction, I'm going to be really sparse because that is out of respect to my own personal taste. But I guess if you listener are like, listen, give us the dish on the fiction, let me know. However, for nonfiction, it's not like I can like spoil like psychology for you. And like I mentioned in episode 1, I did the reading so my friend could do well on the quiz. So with nonfiction, I'm going to give you all the juicy goodness. So maybe you don't have to read the book, but you can get the general gist and you can learn something new. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't read the book. Obviously, I'm going to encourage you to read it because you might have your own takeaways, right? So, back to the stack of pancakes. I first read My Stroke of Insight about 16 years ago. Woof. I'm going to say that one more time. 16 years ago. A driver's licensed child ago. When I was living in Tennessee as a selection of the Public Library Book Club. I'm going to give a shout out to the awesome ladies of the Litwitz Book Group in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Woo woo. At that time, I was not much of a nonfiction reader at all. So this is not something I would have picked up. This has become a highly recommended favorite of mine. I have a stack of books. Okay, obviously, I have like many stacks of books, but on my desk, I have a stack of books of like my tippity tip top, like the ones that are closest to my heart that moved me the most. And it sits there because this book really means a lot to me. And it really changed how I thought about my brain and also my own capacity for change. So, in a nutshell, Taylor is a brain scientist who experienced a stroke and recovered from it, which is wonderful. And so, this book is a distillation of both the experience of going through the stroke and then what she learned about the function of her brain and the choices she made and continues to make about the person she wants to be now that she's having to relearn a lot of things. I will say the first half of the book, where she's actually going through the stroke, is very science heavy, and she's giving important context about how the brain works, leading up to explaining the stroke itself. But it can drag a little bit if sciencey language is not your thing, but it is worth it to try to power through because that back half, if you saw my copy, the number of pages I have dog-eared, which I'm sorry if you don't fold down pages. I only fold down pages if I own the book, so please don't come at me for that. But if you can make it through the sciencey parts, it's really good context. The one example that really changed things for me was when she talked about getting a speeding ticket post stroke. So, she's listening to music, she's jamming out in the car, she gets pulled over. And so she goes into detail about how upsetting and frustrating that can be. You get a speeding ticket, you're like, oh, I'm so dumb. I can't believe I did this. And, she explains that when you are having a negative stimuli like that, there are some things that happen initially with your brain, natural pathways that your brain will take as a response to the negative stimuli. And that is a pattern you cannot disrupt. That is just what the brain is doing to process. So, first of all, I think a lot of times I kick my butt about, not being able to respond more positively when something bad happens. So it was very valuable to me to understand that the brain needs a minute to take it in and be angry or mad or sad before you can, be rational and make a plan and, move on with your day. And when I say it needs a minute, it's literally 90 seconds. So when I say 90 seconds, that is because that is the amount of time it takes your brain to run through the emotional program it is going to do necessarily to its function. So if you get angry, there are certain physiological things that are happening inside your noggin, and those take 90 seconds. With Taylor's example of the speeding ticket, in the 90 seconds after it happened, there is nothing she could do about blaming herself and feeling angry or feeling mad because that is the brain responding to the thing. But if over the course of the rest of the day, she's thinking about how she's dumb and she shouldn't have done that, and now what is she going to have to do about it? That is you, or in this example, her, choosing to be mad or to be sad or to be angry about the thing because the natural pathway is already completed. And understanding that there is choice in the matter, that I don't just have to be, a slave to my emotions and to my feelings has been so powerful. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Understanding that this power of choice exists when it comes to your emotions was literally transformative for me. Now, doesn't mean that, and now I'm all better about it. It just means I understand it when I'm torturing myself, that I'm actually doing it to myself. And so, in the example of the speeding ticket, you might have to choose for the rest of that day 100 times not to be mad about it, because every time the brain's like, oh, the speeding ticket, you're like, well, nope, actually, we're done being mad about that. We got through it. So it's about deciding to move past it and not get pulled down again by that negativity and that doo-doo spiral of the brain. Yep, doo-doo spiral. You heard it here. And one of the other key takeaways I have from this book is that, she goes through having to basically relearn who she is and how to be, because she has to retrain her brain after the stroke. So she decided to basically not teach herself to be negative parts of herself that she didn't like, because you train your brain to react certain ways by repeated behaviors and the actions you emphasize. So you can work to deliberately become a more positive person by choosing more positive responses. Again, it's not immediate. It takes lots of small choices to make a difference, but you can decide to be different in the moment and in the next moment and then in the next moment. And if what you're choosing is more positivity and positive responses, then your brain starts to learn those pathways and then might pick that instead of picking the negativity. So you can do that with your brain because science says so. Yeah. hmm To close out this segment, I just want to emphasize I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm not saying, oh, why aren't you picking to be positive? I just told you how to do it. It is deliberate and it is difficult work, but I'm here to tell you that you can do it. You can make positive change for yourself and you can choose to do differently, one teeny tiny itsy bitsy baby step at a time, and it will make a difference. I know that you can do it. We have come to the end of our time together today, and that is sad, but I'm glad to have spent it with you. So, I'm going to give a little recap because life is busy, and I want to make sure you have at least one nugget of wisdom to take with you. So, what the heck did we talk about today? Well, the unsolicited advice of this episode was about negative self talk and how you can distance yourself from it and not give it free rein to take over. So remember, tell Linda Lamesauce to take a hike. Tell the 9 p.m. brain we are not interested. In unrequired reading, I recommended the, insightful book, My Stroke of Insight by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor to give you some tangible science to shove into that brain. And if you're wondering, gosh, I wish there was a convenient place to see resource links, well, look no further than the show notes, where I will post those things. And I will also put them on my Facebook and Instagram pages. Now, go on, get out of here, get some sleep, drink more water. Okay, bye. If you liked what you heard, tell 2 other human beings you know about it. And please, pretty please, remember to follow Advice from the Cheerbrarian in all your favorite podcast places or visit our website at cheerbrarian.com.